Thom Hartmann here with you on Ted Cruz Tuesday. It is no, shouts Jim. No, please, anything but. It's amazing. Ted Cruz, what was it, Tortilla Junction or Tortilla Flats or Taco Flats or something like that? It was some. He was seen last night meeting with a bunch of right-wing Republican members of the House of Representatives. Ted Cruz, of course, is a senator. He's the second senator from Texas. And he was seen meeting with a bunch of right-wing Tea Party Republicans at a restaurant here in Washington, D.C. called Tortilla Junction or something like that. It had tortilla or taco in the name, which is really pretty weird and bad to begin with. But Ted Cruz, I mean, like Harry Tortilla Coast. Thank you, Shano. It was called Tortilla Coast. God only knows what Colbert and Stewart are going to do with that. But anyway, the Senate, Harry Reid and Mitch McTurtle, came up with a plan that would, I mean, they've already come up with a plan, right? I mean, they already sent a clean continuing resolution to the House of Representatives using John Boehner's numbers, using the Republicans' numbers, which included the sequester, to continue funding the government. So they put together another one that not only continues to fund the government, but also will stop the economic crash, worldwide economic crash that will happen if on Thursday we default on our debts, or that might happen. According to some of the Tea Party members, nobody knows. Of course, keep in mind, 100% of the Tea Party caucus believes that global warming is a hoax. It may well be, I don't know that a poll has been done, but certainly a high percentage, almost certainly, of the Tea Party caucus probably believes the world is only 6,000 years old. So this is not, these are not exactly the brightest bulbs in the tree. And these are the guys that Ted Cruz is leading. So here's the problem. Harry Reid and Mitch McTurtle put together this thing that they said, okay, we'll send this down to the House of Representatives, but in order to pass the Senate under normal procedures, it has to go through kind of a shake and bake process. You know, it has to come out of committee. It has to go to the floor. There has to be a vote on whether to consider it. There has to be another vote on whether to pass it. There has to be time for debate. It could take a week or two if anybody objects to it at all. So the only way to get it out of the Senate fast is by something called unanimous consent, which means nobody in the Senate stands up and says, wait a minute, I want to talk about this. It just has to be unanimous consent. Everybody says, okay, cool, yeah, do it. And usually unanimous consent is stuff like, oh, yeah, name that post office after Ronald Reagan? Of course. I mean, that's pretty much all the House of Representatives has been doing since the Republicans since the Republicans took control of the House of Representatives, is naming post offices after Ronald Reagan. That's about it. We'll do one here, we'll do one there, we'll do one someplace else. Democrats go, okay, whatever. So the world is kind of on the edge of its seat to see if Ted Cruz is going to object to the unanimous consent request. And we're not really sure when that vote is going to happen because, you know, they're not going to do this in the Senate. I mean, Harry Reid isn't going to put the Senate through this if John Boehner, if they can't say for sure that they'll consider it the House. Meanwhile, the crazy caucus, and I got to tell you some amazing stories. Last night, spent about 10, 15 minutes with Bruce Bartlett. Bruce Bartlett, he was on my TV show. And you can see the clips over at our website at thomhartmann.com. Or on our Facebook page or on our YouTube channel or wherever you want to. Anyhow, you can see the clips of it. And Bruce Bartlett was a senior policy advisor to Ronald Reagan and George Herbert Walker Bush. He is as Republican as you can get in the old sense of the word. He was a genuine Reagan Bush, the senior Republican. He was the kind of Republican that my dad was. Eisenhower was tolerable. He was a little to the left. He bragged too much about expanding Social Security and the number of people who were in unions, although my dad was all in favor of that. He worked in a union shop. And therefore, he was kind of an Eisenhower Republican. And Bruce Bartlett was, he said last night, he said, Ronald Reagan proposed he had a huge tax cut, but he followed it with the biggest tax increase in American history in terms of absolute dollars. Now, by percentages, it wasn't the greatest because FDR did that. He took it, from 25% up to 91%. But in terms of dollars coming into the federal government, Ronald Reagan has proposed and passed and signed the biggest tax increase in the history of the United States. Ronald Reagan. After his initial tax cut bit so bad into the federal government. So anyhow, Bruce Bartlett was on, and he was like, these guys aren't Republicans. They're crazies. And this is my language, not his. You'll have to watch the video to get his exact language. But it was words to that effect. He was like, there are those of us in the Republican Party who just we can't figure out what's going on with these people. And then I had Tommy Christopher on from Mediaite. And Tommy, today, he's the White House reporter for Mediaite. Mediaite's a website that Tucker Carlson owns. It tilts to the right, but Tommy's on the left, and he does a regular column there. And they cover the media. And so Tommy asks the question, why is it that the average American doesn't realize that the Republicans, that John Boehner has had a budget from the Senate since March 23rd and has had a clean continuing resolution for weeks now and could have ended the shutdown of the government in one day, in 1 minute, simply by putting it on the floor for a vote, because there are more than 17 Republicans who would vote for it. It would pass. Why doesn't the average American know that? And the conclusion that Tommy proposed last night live on television in front of God and the whole world was essentially that the corporate TV media, all the TV news organizations, don't want average Americans to know that this is 100% entirely the fault of John Boehner and the Republicans, in particular the Tea Party crazies, the Ted Cruz Tea Party crazies. Don't want Americans to know that, because if they can make it look like, hey, it's this epic battle between Democrats and Republicans, this false equivalency stuff, then people will keep coming back to their TV every hour to see what's going on in the debate. What's going on? But if everybody knew that the whole thing was a scam that was set up by the Republicans weeks ago, that was planned in advance, as the New York Times laid out in an article last week that I shared with you on the air here, that this thing was planned. This spectacle was planned by the Republicans to get publicity, to get donations, to get the base activated, to get people to show up at the 2014 elections. They don't care how many people they hurt or how many people they upset, especially Democrats. Hey, Democrats are going to be PO'd at us? Good. It's going to activate the base. It's going to get them out there to vote for us. And it's going to get them, particularly the big donors, giving us money. And from the point of view of the TV networks, they don't want you to know that, because as long as this churn continues, it's like Balloon Boy. Everybody's watching TV, which means they can charge more for their advertisements. It's the OJ trial. It's the George Zimmerman trial. It's the spectacle du jour. So, I'll tell you the truth about it. This should not be a news story. This should not even be happening. And the news media is as complicit in this as are the Republicans. We'll take that to the bank.